Game changer number 2. You've done the hard work on OBBPC. You have a great offering, and now it's time for us marketers to kick into gear. But learning number 2 was how not to do the rinse, what we call the rinse and repeat syndrome. I wonder how many of you guys in the room have this old marketing model where you take your TV ad, and it goes into outdoor. We put it on equipment even. It goes into in-store as a poster, even maybe on package, onto the internet, into mobile marketing. Basically, what we call cut and paste or rinse and repeat. That is, and it's really not the so old model actually. We assumed, and I had marketers tell me absolutely, it's okay, that works. And it doesn't matter, for instance, Sprite here with the sumo lineman's crushing the poor child's head. It doesn't matter that mom might see this. It works for her. She gets it's for her teen. But literally we found out, actually, it doesn't work. It works for the person who's it's meant for. It doesn't work for potentially the shopper. So we very quickly recognized that the shopper is not always the consumer. This actually wasn't a really hard hurdle. We knew many of our brands are purchased by mom and brought into the house, often for the intended target. And Fanta was one of the first brands that said, oh my gosh, when they looked at the data, we have 80% of Fantas purchased by mom. Maybe we need to think about how we should talk to her as well, in addition to our tween target. And sure enough, we found that we could talk to that tween target in the way they wanted to be talked about, or talked to. We could talk to mom in the way she wanted to be talked to and still maintain the integrity of the brand. She wanted some of the natural cues. He wanted the edgy, cool, creative cues. And when we actually took it into store, we could once again remind him of the fun and flavor of Fanta, and we could tell her about some of the natural and remind her about some of the natural things. By the way, Fanta, just so you know, Fanta Worldwide has many of the formulas have actual orange juice in it. So there's a real natural underlying to Fanta on a global basis. So we got the question from our brand teams, but really, my shopper and consumer are the same. It's a teen. They're going into a small store. They're buying a Coke. Can't I do rinse and repeat now? Isn't that okay? And the answer was, maybe, but maybe not. It really depends on what's happening with your shopper at that time, and I'll give you an example. The Coke brand team was working on a very large global program at the time, based in music, and they had hired some fabulous artists. And the program was built on an insight about who has teens in the room. So many of you live this daily. It's all about their expression, their self-expression. And now that self-expression is taking place in a much broader global forum. So Coke's insight was to attract teens, we're going to create many ways through Coca-Cola they can express themselves and share their voice with the world. And they turned to the shopper team and they said, got it, shopper team? So make this work in store. How are we going to do this in store? And we understand just about everything about every teen's hair on the head of their heads from a consumer standpoint. But when we started to look at teens as shoppers, we really got some interesting insights. Because who you are as a consumer translates and transfers as you become a shopper, or you're going to commit to an activity. And actually, we learned that there were some dynamics that were very different for teen shoppers. There was the slice of their day after school and before they went to sporting event or went home for homework or their job They had about 15 or 20 minutes of freedom, and they had this opportunity to connect with their friends. And it became real connection, and it became real expression of who they were with their friends. So we came back to the global brand team and said, guys, based on what we see from their shopper behavior and their willingness to commit, we're going to make a slight twist. And it's not about sharing their voice with the world. It's actually about sharing their voice with each other. And it's a moment of true human connection. And what that generated in terms of a program was vastly different than had we simply cut and pasted the original core creative idea. So I would challenge you guys, again, even when your consumer and shopper or your guest in the restaurant or your subscriber is the same person, understand how it is they are as they see themselves as a person and consumer, and what happens to them when they make the decision for commitment. Really understand what's happening, because I think that's a key part of translating that value or that love into value. The last game changer that we learned about, and this is my total favorite. This is my passion point, and that's busting the myths at shelf, because this makes a difference. You can be the smartest, most strategic person in the world, and if it doesn't translate into the store, the retail environment, the page, it doesn't really matter. It's just on PowerPoint. And it's also a really cool way to tell your most senior people they're wrong, too. I go quite a bit around the world, and I work in quite a few markets. And I can meet someone for the first time. I could actually go with probably any of you into a store, and we could instantly walk through that store, and you could tell me, that really looks good. And we would pretty much agree to what good looks like. We also could walk into a store and pretty much agree what bad looks like. The issue is, as we go to create a very consistent look of excellence and take all that good strategic thinking and marketing into store, we really couldn't agree what were the foundation principles that we ought to be executing every time. And we had lots of opinions. And generally, the more senior you are, the more right your opinion is in our company. So we embarked on a process, and this process is about 4 or 5 years old, that we called Science of the Shelf. And it was intended to simply start putting the facts behind quite a bit of our conventional wisdom, the things that we believed. And by the way, it was a really interesting process to simply agree on what we believed. Putting out in paper, these are our conventional wisdom. This is actually what we agree we believe, and then starting to build slowly but surely the facts behind it. And we looked at all the levers in the retail environment that make a difference. And we started to say, what's our assumption behind each one of these? And let's go find the facts beneath it. Now, we think this is a pretty cool body of work, and we don't actually share it. But don't tell anybody. I'm going to share one myth buster with you today. And since I'm retiring, what can they really do?